Today we're here to talk about this. I'm excited that we're back and magic help them. I'm just
Sure. Well, thanks for having us on the call today, Vicky. We're, certainly excited to share with your audience today, lessons we've learned right in this book, and certainly the feedback we've gotten from the industry has been really amazing and rewarding for us. So we're excited to dive into it today.
yeah. So why don't you just tell us quick both who you are, how this book.
Sure. Well, I'll start, Phil, and I'll pass it to you afterwards. So my name is Jimmy Mackin. I've been in this industry now for about a decade. I started my career as a blogger, writing about Facebook marketing, and I got hired for a local Remax office here in the Boston area. And over the last several years, I've spent my entire career focusing on how I can help real estate agents differentiate themselves in a crowded marketplace. I saw an opportunity for agents to stand out if they use the internet as a way to reach consumers in a meaningful way. I saw digital marketing as the path to really being able to grow your business. And when I entered in this industry, Vicky, 10 years ago, what I saw a lot of was a lot of the coaches, a lot of the teachers, a lot of the strategies being presented were things that were based off of the past. And when I looked at the landscape, I saw that the best businesses in the world were all moving in one direction, and real estate agents were standing still. So I built a company called Curaytor. I'm the CEO of Curaytor. We're a digital marketing service, and we focus on helping agents, listing agents in particular, get more listings. And we do that through innovative marketing strategies. So, as part of this journey as being the CEO of Curaytor, I've had the opportunity to meet some amazing people and get connected with some thought leaders outside of the industry. And I really pride myself in, from my perspective, Vicky, being able to look outside of real estate and say, who's doing really meaningful work, really interesting work that adds value to our industry, and how can I bring them to my audience and my community? And that's exactly how I met Phil M. Jones. And Phil will give his bio and his background, but I had the opportunity to have Phil come to our conference a couple years back, and he delivered one of the most amazing and impactful keynotes that I was ever able to witness live. And I knew instantly, after having a chance to experience Phil's lessons in the real world and being able to get to know him personally, I knew instantly that our industry desperately needed Phil M. Jones. Our industry needed someone to come out there and provide value and a fresh perspective on something as critical and as important as sales. So that's how the two of us had gotten connected, and certainly kind of led us to where we are today. But on that note, Phil can certainly speak for himself and share a little bit about his background and how he kind of came to this as well.
Yeah, sure. I'll dive in. Jimmy, thank you for making me blush. I've been in business for kind of ever. I started when I was 14 years of age, had a car washing business that had me making more money than most of my school teachers as a kid. Built a number of entrepreneurial businesses through the years, and found myself then working with some of the UK's largest retail chains. And what I found when working within retail is the difference between those that were doing good and those that were doing great was that they were very, very pedantic on word choices, on structure towards conversation, and how what they could do is increase conversion rate or increase size of transaction just by framing conversations in different ways. A beautiful thing about being in a senior leadership position at a ridiculously young age is that all of my staff were decades older than me. And I learned real quick that you cannot demand respect, you've got to earn respect. So I did the groundwork on reverse engineering what it was that made people successful, and then started to teach that back to other teams. Helped some of the largest retailers around the UK put double-digit growth on year after year after year. And then went from there. I worked in the commercial world of professional soccer, head of retail commercial director at 2 Premier League soccer clubs. I then went on to build an independent investment property business with a partner in the UK. We turned over 240 million in our best year, and that ran us through to 2008. 2008, we brought that business down, and I was looking at what I wanted to do next. And what I got most enjoyed and jazzed up about was the dozens of people who are remarkably talented at what they do, or they're good at doing something, or they're doing something that's good, and they struggled to be able to achieve the success I knew they're capable of, is because they didn't know how to sell stuff. My experience was very much based in packaging the intangible values that are often associated towards products or services that people provide, And I started to help young and aspiring entrepreneurial business owners in the UK through developing training programs. I developed a small one-day sales training workshop back in 2008. And since that point, we've grown prolifically, organically, year after year after year, by now helping some of the world's biggest brands to have more confidence in their conversation around some of the crucial and critical points. See, I've learned that everybody's a salesperson, yet nobody wants to call themselves one.
That was
And
actually,
what,
yeah, that was actually one of the questions I had. Is a lot of real estate probably don't think of themselves as salespeople. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think we can dive into that right now. And you know, I'm going to push something back on you right now, Vicky, is if I was to ask you to think about some, you know, words or adjectives that would describe a stereotypical salesperson, what might some of those words be that are front of mind to you?
Oh, I think a lot of people would say pushy, aggressive, self-interested, maybe.
Right. And I'm looking at your body language right now. If somebody used those words to describe you, or somebody saw that in you when they saw you for the very first time, my guess is that you wouldn't feel too clever.
That's true.
What if, by alternative, I asked you not to use adjectives to describe a stereotypical salesperson, but instead I asked you to describe a professional salesperson? How might the adjectives now change?
Yeah, so I think a professional salesperson is someone who actually helps you achieve an objective that you're, or an outcome that you're looking for.
Right. And what else?
Useful, kind of someone who has your best interests in heart, which I think is what is really not the stereotypical
Right.
salesperson.
So I asked you to look at something differently. I changed one word. I changed stereotypical to professional. You saw a completely different picture in your mind.
True.
I want you to see in that I changed one word, you changed all the words. I wonder what happens in dozens of other scenarios where actually it's not the thing that's wrong, it's somebody's perception of the thing that's wrong. See, every single one of us is a salesperson, whether we're selling a product, a service, an idea, or an outcome. It's just that what we shouldn't be looking for is applause for our sales skills. What we should be chasing is the receipt of the words thank you from our customer base more often, and for them to see the value in what we've created for them by us over-delivering on our promise, not manipulating somebody into something that's unethical. And we're entering into a time right now where integrity is a currency that is starting to weigh more than it ever has done in the past. And that brings me so much joy, is that actually people who do good work are the ones who can really start to be able to step up and shine. And I think, you know, our ability to be able to articulate our value proposition and control the conversation so consumers can see it differently, that's where the magic is. And when we think about real estate in particular, the reputation in the marketplace is that too many consumers are fearful that a real estate agent is only in it for the commission. They're not going to do any work. They're just going to list it online and somebody's going to, you know, show up and then pay for it. And you make tens of thousands of dollars for the process. Like the consumer doesn't see the real value that these experts listening in right now truly deliver. And my work is about helping them both package and position that value so the consumer gets it and understand that it's not the same for more money or the same for less money. It's different for different because it delivers differences.
So your book has 5 stars on Amazon, which you must be pretty pleased with. So for those people who haven't read it, why don't you just give us a quick idea of what it's all about?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go on, Jimmy.
So I'm going to set Phil up for this because I think it's important to sort of, before we get into what the book includes, what's in it, I think it's really important to explain why we wrote the book.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of sales books out there that exist, and there are many of books out there that exist in the context of real estate that I think many of us probably could name. So why would, you know, a Brit and an American, a marketer and a salesperson write a sales book for an industry that we don't actually work in directly today? And that's actually some of the feedback we got originally before people read the book was, why are two people who don't actively sell real estate writing a book about real estate? And I think it's important to address that, Vicky, head on, because it's a legitimate question, and I think it's important that we share this with your audience. Right now, one of the things that I've learned through this process, and something Phil just said that's so important, is this idea of uncovering how you can be of value in the sales process. Simple idea of figuring out through the process of having a conversation how you can be of value to the customer, how you can communicate your value to the customer. Well, if you look at the average real estate agent, Vicky, and you go to a listing presentation and they present themselves to a consumer, they would normally, in a typical scenario, say, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is delivering a great service. Yeah. Now, then they're not going to probably elaborate on that. Maybe they will if they're good, but they're going to say, and many of you who are listening right now, for your audience, I'd love for you guys in the chat just to drop a comment and just let me know if you mention the word service during your listing presentations. If you talk about how you deliver a great service and how your customers love you as part of the way you present the value you offer. See, that was what happens typically in a listing presentation. Typically, agents who are good at their job actually fulfill upon that promise. Now, that is when a customer is actually already a customer. But if you back away for a moment and say to yourself, well, how do we acquire customers in our industry? What is our approach, our first interaction, our first impression we have with internet leads, as an example? And what we find is that we treat internet leads like they are internet leads. And what I mean by that is we ignore them, we neglect them, we abuse them. We call them 20 times in 10 days. We try to persuade them through sheer force or brute force to hire us. So we treat leads like they're leads instead of treating leads like they're human beings and actually trying to add value in some way in the conversation. And what you see when you analyze the typical scripts that exist out there for real estate agents, it is really all about what's in it for me. It's how can I get them to sort of give me the information I need to be able to convert them into a lead? How can I be able to get the information I need, or how do I find the right people to follow up with so I can get that deal? And that doesn't work in sales, doesn't work in service. So first, and maybe fundamental to sort of maybe the inspiration behind all of this, is this idea that we need to start treating people better, regardless if they're a lead or if they're a customer. If we start treating leads like they are customers, they're going to become customers. So we saw that fundamentally, and this is where I'll pass it to Phil to talk specifically about the book, but like we felt philosophically, we had a different point of view about how to approach sales than our industry has been coached for the last 3 or 4 decades.
I'm just going to do a quick technical check. I'm hearing that people can't hear me very well, and they can't hear you, Jimmy. So
okay. They can see my hands moving, so they know I'm saying something.
We do sign language.
But you can hear me? Yeah. This is magic.
It's all going to Phil. I'm going to get the popcorn out.
Okay, so pass it over to Phil, and we'll see if we can do something about the volume for the other 2 people.
Let's see what we can think about here is, and you know as well as I know that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it. And my work has really filtered down and filtered down and filtered down and been about word choices and how word choices can steer conversations. I originally wrote a book back in 2011 called Magic Words. I then wrote a book called Exactly What to Say in 2017. This little book has now gone on to sell over 500,000 copies. It's been translated into 29 different languages, taking me all over the world. And that was the speech that I delivered towards a room full of real estate agents at Curaytor back in early part of 2018. So what we then looked at is the whole real estate community pushed back and said, we need this stuff. Like, we find ourselves in a situation where we're toe-to-toe with another agent, and why choose us as opposed to somebody else? We find ourselves in a situation where we're having to justify our fee versus an online service. We find ourselves in a situation where somebody won't understand why we are valuing a property at this price and not at this price. We find ourselves in a situation where they won't take our advice when it comes to an adjustment they need to make to the property to get it sold. We find these points of friction, and most of these points of frictions become argument, become disdain, lead towards expired listings, or they actually reinforce the negative side of things that exist within real estate. So Jimmy and I had a conversation and said, what if we did the work to do the work to be able to then create this, not as a book, but as a tool that would help real estate agents? What would happen if we didn't create a book of scripts, but a book of frameworks, tools, and principles that allowed people to bring themselves to it with their own experience, their own skill set, their own wisdom, their own unique value proposition, but we gave them the tools to be able to package it, and we rewrote the book purely through the lens of an independent real estate agent. So we interviewed dozens of real estate agents, found the crucial and critical scenarios that they find themselves within every day. I did the work to look at it and said, how would I approach those conversations differently? We then tested them back with workshop material, with real estate agents who work on the field. And you'd see like 25-year established veterans go, boom, mind blown. Why has that not been said to me in the past? And what we then did is we then reported back on the results, did some split tests, had people reporting back in and said, this stuff makes it easier. because we think we're in the real estate industry. We're not. We're in the people industry. I've worked in over 800 different industries. Everybody wants to tell me it's different here. Everybody. And yes, there are differences that need to be considered, which we've done a great job of in this tool, which I think is what I'd rather call it even than a book.
Mm-hmm.
But it's deep rooted in core psychological principles that work, providing people are the thing that we're looking to move. But we've done the work where the reader doesn't have to say, how does this work for real estate?
Mm-hmm.
That's the points that we've taken away and filled it full of examples. So maybe why don't we have some fun with, let's look at some of the friction points that people face and see if not teaching them the book, but just teaching them in real life, that we can give them some real value right now that says, here's something that could change a conversation today or tomorrow for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that idea. And well, just Vicky, just one thing to add there, and on that same track there, Phil, I know for the audience listening right now, one of the things that they're going to struggle with is, and probably especially in today's market, where they're getting additional pressure and additional forces like Zillow and Open Door and other online brokers who are basically offering lower commission, lower fees, and offering essentially a better streamlined service. They're feeling the need to justify their existence. They're feeling the need to justify their commission. So I know one of the things that we hear a lot, and this is something, a real world scenario that comes up, is agents get the question, can you lower your commission? So in that real world scenario, we can play through that a little bit there, Phil, and have some fun with it. And I can act as on the behalf of maybe the consumer if you'd like. But that's a typical scenario that we see when it comes to real estate agents, where they almost always are unprepared. They don't know what to say. And as you just said, I think eloquently, is they immediately go into defense mode.
Okay. Well, why don't we play that out then? Ask me the question.
Sure. Well, Phil, I love everything you're saying. You obviously have the experience, you have the track record. But I drove down the street last week and I saw that Redfin's in my market, and they're offering to sell my house for 1% commission. So,
okay.
Would you be open to reducing your commission?
What do you understand about the differences of working with a qualified, highly skilled, experienced real estate agent and an online listing tool?
Well, I've never sold my house before through an online listing tool, so I don't have any experience. And last time I sold my house, I sold it through a realtor.
Okay. And what's your experience of selling houses across the board?
Well, I've actually never sold a house before. I've always hired a realtor. So me personally, I haven't listed my property myself.
How important is it that you get this sold quickly and for the right price?
That's the reason we're here, Phil. We got to get this house sold.
And what did you like about working with a real estate agent last time around?
The communication. The last sale was a bit of a nightmare. We had offers coming through. They were falling apart. But, the fact that they were always kind of front and center, letting me know what was happening, I didn't have to guess. That was obviously, really critical because it was a stressful part in our lives.
Okay. And what do you understand about how we make our money here as professional real estate agents?
Well, I just figure you get paid when the house sells.
Okay. And you understand that we only get paid if the house sells?
Yes.
Okay. So are you looking to be able to work in a situation where you have a partner standing side by side with you, helping you navigate every decision along the way, or are you looking to list your house?
I'm looking for the first one, Phil.
Okay. So why are we talking about Redfin?
That was really interesting. That basically played out a lot of the different principles in the book in one exchange. And one thing I notice is how, Phil, you really took control of the conversation with questions, which is something that you talk about in the book. So why are questions so powerful?
Why do you think questions are so powerful?
I think because you're the one who controls the conversation.
There you go. Boom. Point illustrated.
But I've read your book, so I know the answers.
The person in control of the conversation is the one who's asking the questions. It's always the key. And what happens is that people often show up to a negotiation and they get thrown a point of friction or a question in the other direction. And they do one of two things. Is either they panic and they be like that turtle on their back and they're like, right? And then they sound desperate. Or worse than that, they get into an argument. Or worse than that, they get asked a question and they think, I know this one. And then they respond with the answer. When what they're really there to be able to do is to not answer the question, but to steer the conversation towards a predetermined outcome that's beneficial for both. right? And you know as well as I do that sometimes you're asked a question by a loved one, a friend, a family member, or spouse. They didn't want the answer to the question. They were just looking to be able to engage in a certain type of conversation on from there. Mm-hmm. See, when somebody says, can you reduce your fee? What they're really saying is, I would like to work with you. Mm-hmm. That's what they're actually saying. I would like to work with you, but I currently don't understand the difference between what you're charging and what somebody else is charging. Please educate me so that what I can do is I can justify this decision when speaking to my husband, wife, my friend, my family member, somebody else, knowing that I make a smart move. Mm-hmm. And this is what our job is to educate people. If you would like to be perceived and seen as an expert, my suggestion is that you behave as one. Mm. Now, experts don't tell people what to do. They consult. So what they do is they get to a position of certainty, meaning that you and the other person arrive at the same conclusion at the same time. Nobody wants to be told what to do. You tell a prospect they're wrong. You then try to prove to them that they're wrong. They're going to hate you even more, mm-hmm. even if you're right. And the goal is not to be right. It's to get towards the right result. The most beautiful thing about steering a conversation with questions is you can never be wrong. Know what happened if I delivered any question back towards Jimmy and I got a response back that was one less than what I was comfortable with. I can now come at it from 3, 4, 5, 6 different angles to still prove the point I'm looking to make. What the book delivers is it delivers tools and frameworks to allow you to ask better questions so that you can create the context for you to insert your content. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we're looking to be able to help people with.
Yeah, I love the simplicity of the book. The fact that you give, very simple phrases that you can remember and apply to very different contexts.
Yeah, there's 25 years worth of work in a 2-hour read.
Yeah. So one of the other examples you give is that, people are often delay decisions. So they'll say, I need time to think about it. I need time to think about working with you. I need time to think about the offer. I need time to think about whatever it is. So what are some good ways to handle that kind of objection?
Jimmy, I'm going to come at that one head on. I'm going to do 2 things. Firstly, what we look to be able to do a great deal of work with is how to prevent objections as opposed to just overcome them. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest reasons the objection, I need some time to think about it, has shown up is because you created it. And here's one of the ways in which you create it. We talk in a chapter in the book about simple swaps in phrases of words. My guess is that at least one person listening in right now has finished a conversation with a prospect or a client and said the words, do you have any questions? And when you ask the question, do you have any questions? What you've just suggested to the other person is they should have questions. Trouble is, you've just given them all the information, but you've just told them that you don't think you've given them all the information or they didn't hear it all. So you've just told them that they should have a question. In your mind, you believe, or they believe, that they don't have a question. So with them thinking that they should have a question but don't have a question, and you ask the question, do you have any questions? They now say things like, I need some time to think about it because I'm wondering, what did I miss? I need some time to process. Mm-hmm. You've rephrased that question from do you have any questions to what questions do you have for me? And they say, well, no questions, which means they must have made a decision, which means you can invite them to take it. No, I say invite them to take it, not ask for the decision. You invite somebody to take a decision by leading them through what happens next. There's some more words from the book, right? What happens next is, what happens next is that we're going to schedule in with a photographer to make sure your house looks beautiful. So what we can do is present it to people in the right way. And if it's not, what happens next is it's the next steps are. The next steps is that we craft a detailed marketing plan that allows us to be able to position your property to the right people at the right time, resulting in blank, blank, and blank. Now we're leading somebody towards an outcome. So a big believer in prevention is better than cure. If you are getting more than 3 out of 10 people say, I need some time to think about it, it isn't the objection handler you need. You need to understand that you're part of the problem earlier on. If it's not that, and we do look to be able to overcome it, we have to understand what really happens. See, when a client says the words, I need some time to think about it, or a prospect says, I need some time to think about it, your immediate reaction that you want to respond with is like, what is it? Like, what do you want to think about? Just tell me, I can probably help, right? That's what you think. But you cannot say that because that's rude and obnoxious. And you've just spent 55 minutes telling them you're not rude and obnoxious. So what happens is that we don't ask those questions. Now, I'm guessing at least one person listening in right now at that point has said something like, it's okay, no pressure. We're ready when you're ready, right? I'll leave it with you. I won't pester you too much. Well, I might call you 20 times, in 7 days, but I won't pester you too much. and they lose all control. What we need is the ability to ask rude and direct questions without sounding rude and direct.
So exactly, how do you do that?
You do it with a simple preface. See, if I preface a direct question with the words "just out of curiosity," I can ask whatever on earth I like. So I could say, just out of curiosity, what is it specifically you need some time to think about? Or I could say, just out of curiosity, what would need to happen for you to make a decision over something like this? Or I could say, just out of curiosity, what is it that's stopping you from moving forward with this right now? What I could then do is adopt the second most important quality for any professional salesperson is I could shut up, say nothing, zip it. The pause now becomes my friend, because what they now have to do is they now have to validate the stupid statement they just made, which they're going to find remarkably difficult. And one of two things will happen. Either like a period of around 12 seconds goes by, during at which some point you'll be, they'll interrupt that silence by telling you what's really stopping them. I got one more person to see. They're coming at 11 a.m. tomorrow, so I don't want to make my mind up until I've spoken to them. Well, as it happens, I had no intention of actually being able to use you. I was going to use my brother-in-law. He's a realtor. I just know he's new in the business, so I wanted to make sure his price wasn't wrong, right? All these, but we can deal with truth. Like, if the truth comes out and nobody could have won that piece of business at that point, you can dust yourself down and move on, sleep well at night, understand that you dive back into your database, extract out some new prospects, and get busy on something that can work. Like, it's a lot easier to give birth than it is to raise the dead. And sometimes we have dead prospects, right? Like, we just have to move on. But it's our ability to ask those questions. So thing one is that they might interrupt you. Thing two is that the pause goes on. Please know that this is a scenario where he or she who speaks next loses. So let the pause come. And you might be surprised that what happens is they come back and say, you know what, Phil, like, nothing needs to happen. You know what, Phil, you're right. There isn't anything stopping me. You know what, like, there isn't really anything to think about, is there? Let's do this. Mm-hmm. And we have to give some sympathy plus empathy to the size of the decision we're asking somebody to make. Like, you can have every logical reason on the planet as to why somebody should list with you and list with you right now and work with you in order to be able to sell their home. There's still this giant emotional part that is attached towards this kind of decision, that if you fail to give any attention towards that point, that's what could be costing you. And being able to ask somebody big, brave questions is what moves you from being just a great real estate agent or somebody who knows a wonderful amount about the industry to somebody who actually genuinely assists people with their decisions and helps them be able to overcome some of the obstacles that exist in their own mind.
That's true.
And Vicky, just one. I'm sorry, Vicky, go ahead.
I was going to say, on the subject of questions, if you have any questions for Phil or Jimmy, put them in the chat and we can ask them live. But yeah, back to you, Jimmy.
Well, just one thing to add there to just take Phil's point home. We have a client who recently had a scenario where she had a $1.2 million listing, and the listing was not properly priced because the consumer had unrealistic expectations of what the home should sell for. So I think your audience could probably relate to that. They take a listing on and, they're trying to do their best job marketing the home to sell the home, but they know in their heart of hearts that it is a price issue. There is no other issue. So she had this price issue with this property. At the end of the 6 months, the $1.2 million property that she invested thousands of dollars into marketing was not selling. So as you can imagine, she got we're just going to wait and think about maybe hiring another realtor in the future. She got that, I'm going to think about it. I don't want to relist yet. I just need some time to think about it. And she used one of the tools that we have in the book that Phil just articulated, which is that just out of curiosity. And she simply said, and I'll give you the exact words she used. She said, just out of curiosity, help me understand what you think another agent is going to do to market your home to sell it for the most amount of money. And she just let it sit. And to Phil's point, the awkwardness and the uncomfortableness that comes along with that can be torturous for a salesperson who's used just to talking. And at the end of that, the consumer, as Phil said, didn't know or didn't have a reason, and they led themselves to the conclusion that maybe I probably should just continue with you because you've done everything that you said you're going to do, and probably it's going to be the price that's going to help sell this property. Now, if you look at that scenario, and in our world, Phil, we see this all the time with real estate, is that the natural tendency, and Phil mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating, the natural tendency is to immediately go into defense mode. It's probably one of the the tools in this book that we hope the readers and the audience get the most out of is that natural inclination you have to defend your position is the same thing that's causing you to get the results you're getting, which is she could have easily said, Vicky, in this scenario that, well, what's another realtor going to do that I haven't done for you? She could have easily said, well, I've done this, I've done that. Like, she could have easily said that. And many times she probably has in the past, but she didn't. She had the consumer clarify their position to get a better understanding of how she could serve them. And as a result of that, she maintained the $1.2 million listing. And what's so critical about this for your audience to understand, and what Phil's been sharing with everyone throughout today's podcast, is the fact that there are all these little moments that happen every day. And if we were just to slow down for 1 second to analyze it, the opportunity is there for us. And it's not some magic pill. TikTok is not going to be the solution to you not hitting your sales goals next year. It's this. And that's why we wanted to do the real work to provide the value in the book. As Phil said, give you guys a tool to use every day to help you grow your businesses.
I think to your point, I'm just going to kind of, right. And this is what I was just going to kind of make a point on is, historically, what an industry wants to say is, look, here are the scripts. When this happens, here's your objection handling script. Here is your FSBO script. Here is your appointment creation script. Here is your expired listing script. And I'm like, that doesn't work in the real world. Mm-hmm. Like, what you need tools, because this is the professional craft. You need to be able to understand that says, actually, when I'm going to sculpt out the solution I'm looking for at this given moment, I need a hammer, a chisel, a file, a sanding paper, a polish, a boom, 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 because that's what I'm going to do to move next. And what we've created in the book is the ability for people to understand both the principles behind the word choices and the word choices. And then my encouragement to everybody listening in is to go play. Like, exactly what to say before we did the real estate edition was the most listened to audiobook in the nonfiction category in 2018. And it tells me that people are revisiting this and they're refining themselves on it. I mentioned again, this isn't a book, it's a tool. We're hearing back from agents that are keeping it in their, their glove box or in the visor of their car, or those with teams are like picking a set of words and saying, how can we find 100 different ways that we might be able to use this in our day-to-day things? Mm-hmm. This is a piece of sandpaper that says we can keep polishing what we're doing. And there are thousands of applications for all of these tools at dozens of points. And the negotiations that exist as a real estate agent, it's not just winning the listing. There are thousands of micro negotiations that exist in keeping that client, getting them to do the things that you need them to do, helping to drive the referral business that you might want afterwards, developing your Google reviews, ensuring that what you're doing is that you're collecting the right amount of data so that you can continually prospect with them, making sure that even the ones that aren't ready for you right now are giving you something that's valuable and tangible that you can be able to learn from. And it's the compound effect of having quality conversations. And what everybody else wants to tell you is to say, well, just make the dials. You've burned through enough. We've seen the challenges that now exist with that, where the worlds are at saturation. It doesn't mean we're only going to shoot for perfect, but it's the compound effect of a quantity of quality conversations that we should be looking for. And that's why I love tools like what you have at Top Producer, where it gives people the ability to archive great information, to be able to recall that information to support a more meaningful conversation, put prompts and reminders in place to say, now what? To create automations that perhaps have somebody trigger back in the other direction. But you want to be ready that when that automation kicks in, or when that prompt or reminder shows up, or when those pieces of data are there that you want to insert into the conversation, if you don't have the ability to actually be able to make it count, keep counting conversations, stop making conversations count, right? That's what's going to happen. So I think people bring in more awareness to say, this is a muscle that requires training, and also it's all a game. So my encouragement is to play with it. We throw out this idea of right and wrong now. There is no right and wrong. There's the right result, and there's thousands of ways we can get there. And what it allows people to show up as themselves in a moment, as opposed to, robot mode, here comes script.
Yeah, I do like the fact that you give people just little words that they can apply to different situations instead of scripts, because scripts really are quite forced and foreign. So one of the things you have in the book, it says, growing a new client base from your existing happy clients is a solid strategy for business growth, yet it's not often implemented at all. So what stops agents asking for referrals, and what are some magic words that can help?
Jimmy, you want to ride at this? I've spoken a little for a while.
Sure. Well, let's first off, we got to be honest with ourselves. I think it's always a good place to start. I've learned that more recently than I think before in the past. Right now, at the end of a transaction, the vast majority of real estate agents do not want to talk to their clients anymore. They just spent 3 months, 4 months, 5 months working with this person 24/7. At the end of the transaction, they're relieved. It's just a sort of this moment of ecstasy and joy. It is over. Okay?
We did it.
Like that is just important to understand. That's where we're starting from. And then you have this. So that period of time typically leads to a moment of just non-communication. So the relationship you spent all this time building and servicing now goes cold. So now many agents are stuck in a position where they're justifying to themselves why they don't re-engage their past clients and their sphere of influence and the people they work with. I don't want to bother them. I don't know what to say to them. They're not going to sell their house soon, so why should I stay in touch? They make a list in their minds of reasons why they shouldn't continue to nurture the people who already know, like, and trust them, that prevent them from actually doing the work. So I think we have to first, before we even give you the tools needed to start those conversations back up again, first, at the very minimum, just address the elephant in the room, which is Zillow does a better job nurturing your past clients than you do. And we got to accept that fact.
It's true.
Right? They are sending out monthly reports about the value of your home, telling you what's selling in the area, keeping your real estate, your clients informed. I subscribe to Credit Karma. And for those of you who don't know, Credit Karma in Vancouver, I'm not sure if it's a North American company or just a U.S. company, but essentially they send you a report every month on how your credit's doing. Now, I'm not buying a house soon. I'm not buying a car soon, but I still check that report. I want to know, how's my credit doing? Going up or down? I'm not making any major purchases. I still want to know. There's still value in a lightweight touch that just maybe keeps you top of mind with that consumer. So when I think about why agents struggle to get referrals, I think about first and foremost those mindset issues. Now, Phil, as we think about maybe ways to bridge those gaps, as we think about maybe ways to start those conversations back up again, why don't we start with the very beginning of the process, which is, that ecstasy moment in which now we want to be able to get an introduction to people within their network. And then we could talk a little bit later maybe about the ability to re-engage some of those past clients who you have essentially neglected.
You bet. And on the re-engagement point, one of the things that I think makes this book truly collaborative is I threw the ball to Jimmy and the marketing team at Curaytor that says, how can my work then be applied to digital platforms as well? How can this then play out in Facebook posts and email sequences and autoresponders, etc., to say, take that piece and go add your brilliance to what I've created, which I thought was fun. When it comes to actually the conversational point, I think the biggest reason that most people do not ask for referrals is, well, it's for probably one of a few reasons. One is they don't know when to ask. It's like a timing issue. And if it's not a timing issue, it's a skill issue, is I don't know how to ask, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is the moment passes, you find yourself lost for words, you're back in the car driving home thinking shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? That's what happens by alternative. If it's not those two reasons, the third reason is you're too lazy, you're bone idle, you're making too much money, everything's too awesome, it doesn't matter too much to you, right? Which I don't think is anybody here right now, is that we're all in the quest for better and for more. Well, that's why we're listening to this right now. So if we can deal with the when and the how, chances are you could probably ask more often. Firstly, you got to find the moment. The moment is actually full of thousands of different moments. There isn't one specific moment. Yeah, there's one commonality within that moment. In every one of the thousands of moments that you could ask for a referral, what typically happens is the other person is feeling something. What the other person is feeling is grateful. When somebody is feeling grateful, what do they say to be able to show their appreciation and their feeling of gratitude? They say the words, thank you. Mm-hmm. When somebody says the words, thank you, you need to take a deeper understanding of what that really means. When somebody says thank you, yes, they feel appreciative. Yes, they feel gratitude, but more than that, they felt indebted. That's why they said thank you. The saying of the words thank you is coming from a feeling of indebtedness. When is the best time to ask somebody for something? It's when they feel indebted. They're way more likely to do it. So next time a prospect or a customer says thank you to you, you don't go, aha, aren't I awesome? Pat yourself on the back, have yourself a very good day. When they say thank you, think, aha, they feel like they owe me for something. What can I ask for? Mm-hmm. So there's your timing. Go listening for thank yous. When you catch the thank you, what we then got to look at is to say, well, how do you ask them? In the book, what I do is I share a sequence of words that will allow you to get just about anybody to agree to do just about anything without them even knowing what the thing is. So this is a tool to get somebody to agree to take an action before they even know what the action is. For this, I'd normally reach for a volunteer. I may even come to you, Vicky, right now. Could you do me a small favor?
Sure.
There's the words.
So which are the
See,
words?
why is it? There are the words. Why is it that when I ask, can you do me a small favor, you respond unanimously with a yes in the other direction without even knowing what it is that I'm going to ask of you? This is the exact same thing that we can do with our prospects, with our clients. When they say thank you, we think, aha, now's my time to ask. We respond with the words, you couldn't do me a small favor. They say yes. What not only do you now have is their agreement, you also have their attention. They're like, what is it? What is it? What is it?
That's tricky.
Now, the book we share and we frame out a precise referral script. But for those listening in right now, there's dozens of things you could ask for with that tool. Could be referral, could be a Google review, could be an introduction into somebody else. It could just be some further information. Here's something that's not in the book that's just for top producer. Here's what you might want to ask at that point. Is you might want to ask, what 3 things have you liked best about working with us?
Mm-hmm.
And if there was one thing you could change, what would the one thing be? What I now get is I now get extra context. For me, that is a 2-part questionnaire that if every business owner asked more often, the data it would provide them, the other side of those questions, would be enough for you to be able to create every point of innovation you ever need in your business, while still maintaining the core principles that get you to good, plus allow you to actually be able to grow in self-confidence. So they did a pretty decent job. And that would then allow you to actually be able to ask for the referral, the recommendation, something on from there. Because if you say which 3 things did you like best, and then which one thing would you change, got to leave the gap in the middle. Can't ask it as a joined up question. If you wanted a Google review later, you could say, hey, you know that thing that you shared that you said you enjoyed about working with us? Would you be so kind as to go online and share that on Zillow or Google or Facebook or wherever you wanted it? Now, because what I've done is I've helped my prospect know exactly what to say, my review shows up as better in the world. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't helped them to be able to script and formulate what to say with their review, they're like, oh, I'll do it. And then they find themselves at the computer like, what shall I write? Good agent, period, thanks, 5 stars, right? And that doesn't work in today's market where really the knife edge between coming first and coming second can be so tight, and first pays well and second doesn't pay.
Good point.
Well, one example there, Vicky, to give you on the marketing side is it's when Phil taught us this lesson about sort of looking for the thank you, where we immediately thought about how to apply this was in the context of how we promote listings. Now, talking about your past clients and your sphere of influence, oftentimes the people are resisting the idea, again, of bothering their past clients. They don't send them, when there's a new listing available. But when you frame that listing in the context of trying to get a thank you from your past client, you then can ask for a referral. I'll give you a very specific example that led to a client getting a $700,000 listing. Client sent a listing email out to alert his past clients of a new listing that's hit the market. He started the email off saying, hi, everyone. Because you're on my VIP list and I'm going to keep you up to date on new opportunities available in the market, I wanted to let you know that I have a property coming available in the next 24 hours before the rest of the public. And to some form or fashion, what happens is when someone reads that, they say, oh, thank you, right? I appreciate you letting me know that there's a property coming available in the market. So we took the exact same concept and applied it in a marketing framework. And then we asked the question, who do you know who might be interested in a property in Highland Hills? And what happened is, I just was looking at it when Phil was going over his, talking about referrals. The client replied, hey, thanks for the email. I really appreciate you keeping me up to date. There's that thank you again. My parents are looking to actually buy a home in that area. I'd love to connect you with them. So you have this incredible synergy between marketing and sales, which is the principles that Phil coaches as it relates to how to communicate and how to use words to get the results you're looking for, can directly be applied to how you prospect. Because here's the reality. In 2020, many of these conversations are happening via text, via messenger, via email, via post, before they even happen face-to-face or over the phone. So you've got to be able to bridge that gap, Vicky, as a critical component. And that's why, obviously, in the book, we gave away the marketing scripts to help kind of connect those two dots.
So I actually have a question that came in, but one thing I did want to say is that we are giving away a copy of this book to everyone who subscribes to our CRM this month. So I think I failed to mention that before. But Jordan has asked, how do you end a conversation when the potential seller has more appointments after you?
Okay. You want me to run this one, Jimmy?
Take it, Phil.
Do you want to be the person for me, just so I'm not having a conversation with a computer screen?
Sure thing. All right. So, well, listen, Phil, that was, I really appreciate you coming by. I'm meeting with 2 more agents next week, who are top agents in the market. And, I appreciate you coming by today. And, I'm planning on probably circle back with you after I have a chance to kind of hear all my options.
All right. Awesome. Okay. And when are you next likely to see those guys?
Well, we're meeting on Thursday this week and Monday of next week.
Okay. And is there anybody else that you're going to need to see past then?
No, that's it. Just the 3 of you.
Okay. Now, understanding you're looking to see those folks, is that because you're just looking for the best value when it comes to achieving the final outcome on the sale of your home?
Well, I heard that it was a good idea to interview more than one agent.
Okay. And is there anything you've seen in what I've shared with you today that makes you think that I might not be a good fit?
No, I think everything you said made sense.
Okay. So you're just seeing the other guys just to be able to create a comparison.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And you'll be in a position where you know what you want to do by Tuesday?
Yeah, by Tuesday for sure.
Would it be okay if I drop you a call on Tuesday, or perhaps we put something in the diary for us to catch up so we can answer any final questions that you might have and see what the best plan forward from there is?
Yeah, it's the plan.
Morning or afternoon, when suits you best?
Afternoon.
Okay, somewhere like 2:30?
Perfect.
Right? Is if somebody's shopping around, your chances of forcing them into something right now is probably slim to none. In fact, you're more likely to turn them off than you are to turn them on. It's an important decision. And if you play like you might have something to hide and that them finding something when they see the next person is going to uncover something that you haven't told them or a better deal, then all you're going to do is set off the salesperson alarm in the other person. What I need to do is to lean into what they're doing. If I lean into the fact that it says, well, okay, I understand why you're doing this and I can fully understand and appreciate why, but I want to get back to the end of the line, I'm in good shape. See, what I've now just established is the likelihood of them signing with anybody else is slim to none, because we have an appointment on Tuesday for them to decide what they want to do next. I'm their advisor. I'm their confidant. All they're doing is to be able to check out the rest of the market to make sure that I wasn't hoodwinking them. And providing my value proposition has been strong enough, I'm in good shape. What I can then do once they've agreed to that conversation is I can do a few things when they're, before I head out the door. I could create a little Columbo moment and do just one more thing. And I could say, hey, just one more thing. When you see the other 2 agents, please ask them this, this, and this. What you might want to check is what their process and procedures are around this, this, and this. And, also be aware of the fact that one of the things that some of them might tell you is this, this, and this. So what I wanted to do is to provide you that level of transparency. I appreciate it's important for you to go do your homework and to make the right decision, because this is an important decision for you. And I would like to be able to partner with you on this. And I only want to do that when you've got the same certainty that I have that I'm the right partner for you to get this house sold. So I'm just going to give that little piece of afters in waterproofing onwards from there, so that when somebody comes in and values the house at $20,000 more than I did, then I'm still in a situation where they're like, Phil told me they're going to do that. When I've got 2 smart questions that I can ask of them that says, hey, what is your process on using Facebook in order to be able to proactively market the property? Let's put them on the back foot with a couple of USPs. And we're back to really, if I'm to summarize this whole thing, Jimmy, have you seen the movie 8 Mile with Eminem? What we're looking at is we're looking at the rap battle scene when he takes anything that the other person could possibly say about you. And all you're doing is you're bringing that all out up front, leaving the other person left for words, which means you might drop as you leave the home, knowing that you're going to come up and pick up your prize on Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, one more thing there, Vicky, it's just worth pointing out. Just one more thing. Phil, you make the call on Tuesday at 2:30. How do you begin that call?
Well, firstly, how you don't begin it is you don't begin it with the stupidest set of words that ever could come out of anybody's mouth in today's modern age, which is now a good time to talk. And we need to ban that. That was a 1986 script that worked then because phone calls used to be important. Today, it's a completely different game. What I would probably look to be able to do if that was a phone call is I would start the call with the words, "I'm just phoning as promised." If I start the call with the words, "I'm just phoning as promised," the only thing the other person can say back is some level of gratitude that is typically the words, "Thank you." This moves us away from a call of being a follow-up that is pushy, turns it towards a call that was scheduled, that creates a level of professionalism that results in them feeling indebted.
Mm-hmm.
What I might then do is I might then paraphrase when they say thank you. I'm going to say that I know you were scheduled to be able to meet with 2 other agents at the back end of last week and then yesterday. My guess is that you're a little closer towards making a decision, yet still may have a handful of questions. What questions do you have for me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm just controlling and steering and guiding. That's all I'm doing. I'm just controlling, steering, and guiding. I'm not forcing or anything else like that. I'm just removing the points of friction in conversation.
Yeah. Vicky, one of the things that we do at Curaytor is we do consumer research. And what we do is call sellers up and we ask them questions that the average realtor won't ask them, such as what Phil was mentioning. Did you shop your agent around? Did you look at other agents? Normally, that's the third rail in a sales presentation. You don't want to know about competitors. You want to just imagine there are none, right? The second thing we ask is, if you weren't going to hire your realtor, what would you have done? And then we ask questions like Phil was mentioning earlier. What did you love about your realtor? What are the things that you really wish they did better? And what almost always comes up is what Phil is articulating through this process, which is they've built a certain level of trust. So your ability not to try to convince them to do something that's not in their best interest, or your ability to simply do what you say through your actions in starting a conversation off using the magic words as promised, that's what consumers are looking for. They're looking for the feeling that this person is going to take care of me. And I hope your audience is picking up on those small little nuances, because when we do our research, Phil, and we talk to sellers, they don't talk about commission. They don't talk about features. They don't talk about any of these things. They say things like, they made me feel like what I said was important. They listened to me. They helped guide me. They helped provide me with advice to avoid me making mistakes. They don't mention features, and they don't mention price.
And we're living in a time right now where the real estate agents collectively need to re-educate a marketplace on their value.
Mm-hmm.
Is with every conversation being about fees, or too many conversations being about fees, that is a warning sign that says the big risk is commoditizing an industry that is service-based.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does do that, then what happens is you'll all turn around and say, well, it's the tech companies that muscled us out. What will happen is the consumers will run towards the most convenient option. That's what they'll run towards, the most convenient option. You have the ability to be able to show up as the most convenient option. And if you're not building your value proposition around being the most convenient option, and then creating the language around that shows people that they're prepared to pay for convenience, which every other industry proves that people will be prepared to pay a premium for convenience, then don't be surprised if you lose out to a commoditized version of convenience that's a tenth or a 20% of the price that you're currently charging right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this next 3 to 5 year period of time, through my lens of looking at real estate, is you get to write these next chapters should you choose to. It's just, if you fail to start writing them, then what happens is somebody's going to write a new book.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things you talk about in the book is that we often focus on gain. What can you gain from a transaction? So, selling faster, selling for more, all that type of thing. But you also talk about the importance of talking about loss and focusing on loss. So what's that about?
Sure. Is, if we think about saying this in the shortest period of time, is every single thing that is to do with influence is hidden in understanding what the word motivation really means. People talk about motivation, they throw it around as a word, yet very few people understand what it really means. And the word splits after the V. That's where the etymology comes from. The motive part of the word comes from the Latin word motivus. The Asian part of the word comes from the word we now know as action. Motivus, modern day translation, is the word motive. So within the word motivation, you have two things. You have the word motive, you have the word action. Another word for motive is reason. And if somebody's to take action, it means they're going to move or do something. So what's meant by the word motivation is a reason to move or a reason to do. There are only 3 different forms of motivation. What you've got is the thing you want to run towards that's going to make you more comfortable. You've got the thing that you might want to run away from because it's making you uncomfortable. And you've got the thing that makes your heart sing because you're selfish, and so are the rest of us, right? This is the things that move people. So something that's going to make you more comfortable, something that's going to make you uncomfortable, something that makes your heart sing. And when you look at those three things, you can say, well, do people move to become more comfortable? The answer to that question is yes, some of the people, some of the time. Do people move when they're uncomfortable? The answer to that question is also yes, but that is more of the people more of the time. And then you say, well, actually, do people move to do things that are for them, and only them? Well, only all of the people all of the time. Mm-hmm. Our job is to be able to combine those things. But what most people do is they say, you're fine as you are, come with us, we'll make you more comfortable. But it's still saying we're fine as we are. If you're prepared to be able to say, well, if you don't do this with us, these are the risks or the consequences. Plus, if you come with us, then what will happen is everything will be fine, and more so. And by the way, actually avoiding this and running towards this, doing this with our help, aligning it towards a long-term vision or goal that you have for you as for selfish reasons, then guess what now happens is now they can start to be able to see for themselves that this is a no-brainer of a choice. Let's play this out in real time. See, just imagine that what you do is that you list your house online with one of these online services, resulted in it existing, and the only thing you're getting is low price, low ball offers from people who are looking to be able to flip a home quickly. How would you feel if by alternative that what you could do is that you could work alongside working with us? Well, what we could do is we could package and promote your house properly rather than reactively waiting for people who are looking to buy houses, that we can proactively reach out into communities of the type of people who see the value in your home in the way that you do. And just imagine that what would happen onwards from there, that if we did achieve that what you would be more likely to be able to go on and do is to realize these additional funds from the sale of your property, meaning that what you can do is relocate to Australia like you've always dreamed of. See, what have I done is I've created contrast. I've said, here's what happens if you don't. Here's what happens if you do. And by the way, we all know that we're running towards a common goal, which isn't selling your house, it's helping you relocate to Australia, or whatever that reason might be. And that's what we should allow more people to be able to do when it comes to moving people. You've got to go to the dark place. And the second that you lower the floor, the ceiling is now further away. The ceiling looks brighter from a distance, but most people aren't prepared to be able to lower the floor.
Yeah. When you look at how people invest in stocks, it tells you everything you need to know. This is something you shouldn't publicly admit in a podcast, but I lost about $10,000 on cryptocurrency.
I could have told you of all the warnings.
But I'm being nice. My wife lost $10,000. I didn't invest in it, but but she ain't listening to this podcast. So I'm gonna be real here. So, the reason I'm bringing this up here is not to shame her, but the reason I bring this up is because when you're investing in anything, right? You are reluctant to sell as it's going up. You're just sort of like, okay, I'm just gonna hold on to it. I think it can go higher and higher. But as soon as something begins to drop, there's a fire sale, right? People try to they're more motivated, as Phil's saying, to prevent loss. So the stock drops 10% and they're selling. The stock increases 10% and they're not selling. You see that happen all the time with investing, and it just sort of gives you everything, or tells you everything you need to know about human behavior, is that people are more motivated by the fear of loss than they are the potential of gain. And as Phil's saying, you're not necessarily using that as sort of the doom gloom sort of scenario, but you have to sort of have that as part of the conversation. What's at stake here? And once they understand that, then you can be able to work with that.
I think also there's a chance here to be able to use words to be able to create two options. And are you looking to do this cheaply, or are you looking to do this right? Are you planning to list your home, or are you looking to maximize the sale price of your home? Mm-hmm. It's these gateways of saying, are you here, or are you here, are all playing into these same things. Is that you're giving the perception of a 50-50 weighting, but really you're saying, would you like to be smart or an idiot? Mm-hmm. Right? That's really the choices, but the perception is 50-50 weighting, and it can help people make their mind up more freely, but it's playing towards that fear of loss because it's using the same psychology. It's fear of making a stupid decision. Yeah. And you don't have to call something a stupid decision for somebody to see that it might be a stupid decision. You just have to ask them to take a second look at it and allow them to save face in the fact that they might not have been thinking the right thing. And there's like, another fun preface that we write in the book are the words before you make your mind up. Right? It just gives you permission to say that you are still undecided. Look, before you make your mind up, are you looking to do this right or cheap? Before you make your mind up, are you just looking to list your home, or are you looking to be able to get it sold for the right price? But before you make your mind up, are you looking to do the necessary admin to be able to support this and have this ready for sale yourself, or would you rather have somebody doing this for you?
You're also suggesting that they will make their mind up. Like, that's clever as well.
You're welcome.
You are going to make your mind up.
Right.
Well, and Vicky, just to add one last thing, I know we're out of time here, but one of the things that Phil has taught me that I've applied maybe about 2 or 3 dozen times since working on this project is one of the tools we have in the book, which is you have 3 options. And one of the interesting things about that tool is that if we're dealing in the world of integrity and trust, this tool is arguably one of the best tools we have in our tool belt, which is you have 3 options. The first is to do nothing. And the moment someone hears you say that, the moment all the pressure and anxiety that they would have about having to make a rush decision goes out the window. And now they can feel like they can make a comfortable, calm, calculated, albeit emotional decision. But you have 3 options. The first is do nothing. You don't have to do anything. If a salesperson says that one thing, their like level of trust increases 25% right there in the moment, right? If not even more. So I think it's one of these ideas and one of the tools that Phil has certainly helped me understand from a marketing perspective is this idea of just trying to sort of trade or exchange in the world of trust through marketing, through sales. If you can do that, then, you're starting to cook with gas.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You're right. We are out of time. Do you mind slipping to the last John? So I did want to mention that we are giving away a copy of this book to every new subscriber of Top Producer CRM this month. We'll also put in the chat how you can pick up this book on Amazon. It's a really easy read. The tools are amazing. You can apply them to every context and every conversation you'd have in real estate. You can see the phone number on the screen here, and you can also visit our website, chat with one of our representatives about the book. It's a great read. We really appreciate you being with us today and answering all of my questions. So thanks, Phil and Jimmy. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
I think there's one thing that I'd leave people with is the reminder that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it. Added to that fact that there is no right and wrong. So if you're going to pick up a copy of the book, then be sure to be able to take the time to consider what your crucial and critical conversations are that you're having that day, that week, that month. And then give yourself permission to be able to play at this. I believe that everybody listening in right now is a heart-centered, integrity-based, hungry, aspirational real estate agent that knows a great deal more about real estate than I ever do. Give yourself, though, the permission to be a student in the area of conversation and then have fun with the growth that it could bring. Like, let down your own guards of being brilliant. We already know that you're good enough to get in the game. Now let's look at saying, what can you do to be able to grow that skill set to get on the podium more often? And this permission to fail, this permission to play is the big push that I would say to people is let go of it being right. Have some fun with messing it up and see what you can achieve by learning and growing. Jimmy?
Yeah, well, the only thing I would add to that, Phil, was one of the things that we learned in our experience is when you read the book or you listen to the audio book or you listen to this podcast, your immediate tendency and your natural reaction is to immediately go change every single thing you've ever said. And then, that robot that we talked about earlier who's reading a script, you're going to start to sound like that person. So my advice is something that Phil has taught me is take small changes, small bits of this, figure out the most difficult, most painful part of your day, and just apply it in little small steps just to make progress. There is no end goal here. It is all about progress. So my advice for the readers, having gone through this in my experience myself, is figure out where your pain points are and take action in solving those small issues to help you gain the momentum you need to achieve the results you're looking to achieve. And Vicky, thank you for having us on. We had a blast. I hope your audience enjoyed it.
Yeah, they do. We're getting a lot of great comments. Thanks for all the tips. Very much appreciate your time.
And Vicky, one final more thing from me is if people have questions that didn't get answered today, things that we might be able to help out with is come reach out on platforms like Instagram. I'm at Phil M. Jones UK. Happy to be able to see what we can do to plug in any gaps that anybody struggled with today, and keep the conversation alive from there, and see what we can do to add more value.
Great. Thanks, everyone.